On December 5th, the Paraguayan government suddenly announced the expulsion of a Chinese envoy, accusing him of interfering in Paraguay's internal affairs. He was allegedly trying to persuade Paraguay to sever its long-standing ties with Taiwan. The diplomat was given 24 hours to leave the country. The Paraguayan Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a brief statement that day, confirming the revocation of the visa belonging to Xu Wei, the Chinese ambassador to Paraguay, who had been attending the annual UNESCO conference in the country. Paraguay declared him persona non grata for meddling in domestic affairs. Xu Wei holds the title of Minister Counselor in the Latin American Division of China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This position is just below that of an ambassador. Although Xu was supposed to attend the UNESCO event, he did not go to the conference venue. Instead, he appeared at Paraguay's Congress building in the capital, Asunción, where he called on the government to sever ties with Taiwan, causing a diplomatic stir. Paraguay is the only country in South America that officially recognizes Taiwan and is one of the 12 countries worldwide that maintains relations with Taiwan. Despite pressure from China, Paraguay has remained committed to its support for Taiwan. The Congress building in Asunción was funded by Taiwan. In his speech, Xu emphasized that China was interested in establishing ties with Paraguay, but said that Paraguayan officials had to take the first step. He remarked, "It's either Communist China or Taiwan. I suggest that the Paraguayan government make the right decision as soon as possible." The Paraguayan Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Xu violated the terms of his visa by engaging in internal political activities. Juan Bayardi, the Deputy Minister of Administration and Technical Affairs for Paraguay's Foreign Ministry, said, "This gentleman had a parallel agenda. He came to do internal politics that were not appropriate." Coincidentally, on November 29th, the Lithuanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs declared 3 Chinese embassy staff members in Lithuania as persona non grata and ordered their expulsion. The exact reason for their expulsion was not provided, but it was mentioned that they were involved in activities violating the Vienna Convention and Lithuanian laws. In a statement, the ministry said these diplomats were instructed to leave Lithuania within a week. Just 2 days earlier, Lithuania had announced that it was working with Sweden and Finland to investigate the sabotage of underwater cables, supported by the European Union's Eurojust agency. 2 Baltic Sea cables, including one stretching from Gotland Island in Sweden to Lithuania, were cut earlier that month. Reports indicated that during the time the cables were cut, a Chinese bulk carrier called the Yipeng 3 was sailing above the affected area. In March, Lithuania's intelligence chief had warned that China might interfere in this year's elections, given the EU and NATO member support for Taiwan. After Lithuania allowed Taiwan to open a representative office in 2021, relations between China and Lithuania became tense. In retaliation, China downgraded its embassy in Lithuania to a liaison office and pressured multinational companies to sever ties with the Baltic country, which has a population of just 2.9 million. The recent incident involving Chinese ships cutting underwater cables in Europe has affected several countries. However, only Lithuania expelled Chinese diplomats, sending a strong message of resistance against China. In a rare event, Chinese diplomats were expelled by 2 countries in just a few days, both considered economically backward by China. This has never happened before. Moreover, on November 30th, Donald Trump issued a warning on his social media platform, Truth Social, stating that if BRICS countries took action to weaken the US dollar, he would impose a 100% tariff on them. This threat had an immediate impact. On December 2nd, the South African government responded by denying plans to create a BRICS currency. Bloomberg reported that this was essentially a clear distinction from Chinese President Xi Jinping's stance on challenging the US dollar. South Africa's Department of International Relations and Cooperation, DIRCO, issued a statement denying media reports that BRICS countries were planning a common currency. The countries, it said, intended to use their own currencies for trade. BRICS, which includes China, Russia, India, South Africa, and Brazil, has long called for reforms in the international financial system. China and Russia have advocated for moving away from the US dollar. China has been promoting de-dollarization, encouraging the use of the yuan in place of the dollar for transactions, while Russia has sought to create alternative international payment platforms that are not subject to Western sanctions. South Africa's statement emphasized that the country supported increasing the use of national currencies in international trade to mitigate the effects of exchange exchange rate fluctuations, rather than focusing on de-dollarization. Since Trump's re-election, there have been a series of events where Chinese diplomats were expelled by countries in Europe and South America, nations that China views as small and economically backward. This signals unprecedented toughness towards China. The rapid distancing between South Africa and China also indicates a quick shift in relations. It seems that China's diplomatic system has been facing a collapse since Trump's re-election, with a string of setbacks one after another. The recent fall of the Assad regime in Syria has been seen as another significant failure for China's diplomacy and propaganda. On December 8th, the Syrian regime led by President Assad collapsed, with Assad and his family fleeing to Russia. Rebels and civilians took control of the presidential palace. Chinese state media reported that Beijing was caught off guard by the events, and Chinese netizens were actively discussing the situation, with many speculating that Chinese President Xi Jinping was likely anxious about it. On December 9th, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Mao Ning, responded to questions about the fall of the Assad regime, saying that China was closely monitoring the situation and hoped for a political solution to restore stability in Syria. A Turkish media outlet asked why the Assad regime fell so quickly, considering China had been one of Syria's allies. Mao Ning avoided giving a direct answer, repeating the usual vague statements. According to Heng He, a US-based commentator, the Assad regime relied heavily on Iran and Russia, and China clearly sided with these two countries in the Middle East. He noted that Syria was an important position for China to expand its influence in the region. The fall of Assad's regime, he argued, created uncertainty for China's influence in the Middle East. Zineb Ruboya, a researcher at the Hudson Institute, stated that China primarily relied on Iran to expand its influence in the region. With the fall of Assad, Iran's efforts to assert its power in the Middle East has essentially failed, which also meant that China's bets on Iran and its proxies have failed as well. Raboa also pointed out that China had previously framed the Syrian opposition as part of a Western conspiracy, but now it can't make such claims anymore. Furthermore, China's role in indirectly supporting the Assad regime by buying Iranian oil had been exposed internationally. Beijing's recent efforts to mediate in the Middle East and present itself as a peace broker were also thwarted by the regime's swift collapse. While the Assad regime fell, Chinese netizens were closely following and discussing the event, with the topic trending on social media platform Weibo. According to Taiwan's United News Daily, Chinese state media CCTV had invited Li Shaoxian, an expert on Middle Eastern affairs, to analyze the situation in Syria on December 4th. He had confidently stated that with the support of Russia and Iran, the chances of Syrian opposition forces overthrowing the government were slim. However, just a few days later, the Syrian opposition took Damascus, and Assad fled to Russia in haste. Netizens mocked Li, saying, "I could also be an expert with predictions like that." Due to his involvement in the massacre of Syrian civilians, Assad had been sanctioned by Western countries like the US and has long been diplomatically isolated. However, in China, he has been treated as a guest of honor, with some Chinese nationalists even hailing him as an anti-American hero. Last September, Assad was invited to attend the Asian Games opening ceremony in Hangzhou and met with Xi Jinping. The two countries established a strategic partnership. Now, Chinese netizens are questioning whether the Chinese government's investments in Syria are a loss. Some netizens have even reshared a video of Assad's interview on CCTV, mocking his responses. In the interview, the CCTV host quoted some online comments. One netizen wrote, "In the ruins, we should still look at the stars." And another said, "Please let the roses bloom in every corner of Damascus." Netizens commented, "Even Assad couldn't bear to listen. His face turned red." Independent Beijing commentator Ji Feng said that the authorities are now very anxious and working hard to maintain stability. He said, "I posted a few messages today, and when I wrote Assad on WeChat, I found that others could post it, but I couldn't." So, the situation with Assad is definitely an outlet for many people. The swift fall of the Syrian dictator has sparked heated discussions on overseas social media platforms, with many netizens pointing fingers at the Chinese government, which has long supported Assad's regime behind the scenes. On the X platform, veteran journalist Jiang Guangyu shared a video of Syrians celebrating the overthrow of the dictatorship, joking that Assad fled in panic and the butcher family that ruled Syria for half a century was overthrown. Xi Jinping must be feeling anxious. A netizen responded in the comments, "Communist regimes always end this way, collapsing overnight, crumbling to pieces." Social media personality Li Dayu said, "On December 8th, the Syrian army command informed the military. Assad had fallen, and 20 years of rule are over. The government is fully cooperating with the opposition forces for a peaceful transfer of power. Syrians have waited for this day. What about the Chinese? Hong Kong celebrity Wang Qiuxing reposted, "Last year, Assad and his wife visited Lingying Temple in China to pray for blessings. A year later, Assad's regime in Syria fell. Netizens are saying, Lingying Temple is too powerful. I will have to visit it myself one day." Mr. Y, who is familiar with the Chinese communist system, shared his thoughts. "The CCP is not a normal political party or organization, and China is not a normal country. The CCP's foreign ministry is not a true diplomatic agency, and China has never implemented a genuine foreign policy. This is something many, especially Westerners, have trouble understanding. The CCP's foreign ministry is actually a facade under the United Front Work Department, and all of China's foreign policies are ultimately subordinated to the principles and needs of the United Front. The United Front is the fundamental strategy and principle of the CCP's foreign policies. Many Taiwanese misunderstand the United Front as a strategy targeting Taiwan's unification. In fact, United Front theory originates from Lenin's Soviet Union. It's about uniting different classes to overthrow enemy forces. In most communist countries, the United Front ends after the party seizes power. But in China, the United Front has always been a key coordinating unit of the CCP. Its branch agencies include the Ethnic, Religious, Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, Overseas Affairs, Tibet, Xinjiang, and other departments, all aimed at uniting Kuomintang members, ethnic minorities, Hong Kong and Taiwan businessmen, and foreign government officials. Mr. Y stated, "The two words United Front conceal the essence of the CCP's thinking. It is always in a state of war. Its internal enemy is its own people, and its external enemy is the world and all of humanity. If you don't understand this, you'll never truly understand the CCP, nor will you be able to deal with it." The following are recent cases exposing the CCP's United Front work. Recently, Taiwanese anti-CCP internet influencer Ba Zhong, along with singer Cheng Baiyuan, who was once deceived by the CCP but has now awakened, collaborated to expose the CCP's United Front tactics, becoming a focal point for Taiwanese media. Ba Zhong revealed in a recent interview that the CCP's United Front work in Taiwan is extensive, involving people from various fields, including teachers and monks. Ba Zhong, a Taiwanese YouTuber with millions of followers, invited well-known Taiwanese rapper Chen Baiyuan to shoot a documentary about how the CCP recruits Taiwanese influencers for its United Front efforts. The first part of the documentary was released on December 7th on YouTube. Upon its release, it immediately sparked a strong response in Taiwanese society. On the same day, Ba Zhong appeared as a guest on the set TV program 54 Jury, where the host asked him how many Taiwanese people had been recruited by the CCP. Ba Zhong indicated that this would be revealed in the second part of the documentary, but hinted that the CCP's recruitment was not limited to influencers. Teachers, coaches, and even people from temples were also targeted. He stated that the United Work Front extended beyond the well-known cities like Xiamen, Shanghai, and Beijing. When asked about the number of people recruited by the CCP, Ba Zhong said, "It's over 1,000. I can only say over 1,000. One city? Over 1,000? Think about how many cities there are in China." When asked about the price the CCP offers to recruit Taiwanese people, Ba Zhong said that this would be covered in the second part of the documentary. However, he did mention some clues, stating that the CCP is very poor this year and no longer openly discusses payments. He said, "If you don't talk, they won't offer you anything. If you negotiate, they know you know the price, and they'll see how much you're willing to settle for." Chen Baiyuan, in an interview at the event, explained that many Taiwanese influencers who went to China were unaware that they were being drawn into the United Front, and they gradually found themselves caught in it. He shared how, in the past, the CCP had promoted populism, and how he was persuaded to set up a business in China. However, when his business was cheated and stripped by others, and he tried to seek justice through the courts, the Chinese court dismissed the case, claiming that the defendant was missing even though the person was still posting online. It was then that he began to realize that he was cheated. Chen Baiyuan further revealed that when he wanted to speak out about the injustice he suffered, the CCP's United Front and national security officials contacted him and told him to swallow the matter and continue doing patriotic and party-loving work. This was unbearable for him and led to his realization and repentance. As the CCP's diplomatic system suffers setbacks, its United Front methods are being fully exposed. This often signals the final signs before the collapse of an authoritarian regime. Does this imply that the CCP's days are numbered? Perhaps it is time for us to prepare ourselves for what may come.